Hi everyone, Suey here.
Hey man, Tori. It's been a while. How's everyone doing?
It's been a long while. So I thought I would get Tori to help me do a video down here in the library corner. If you're new to the channel, you haven't maybe seen the library corner. This is the YA section. Lots of books. Okay, you can look up those videos when I am taking you through this corner in another video. If you have missed those, today we are going to be in the YA section because I did a video the other day talking about how I feel like YA books should be read by all people. And I want to make a point that there's lots of YA books that are not surface level. They are deep. They've got depth. They've got depth to them. Yes. They have oomph and not powerful stories. Childish. Yes. So a lot of people, I think, have the misconception, people who haven't read YA books, I should say, have the misconception that YA books are fluff level always. And there are a lot that way, and those are great and fun books. I just thought it would be fun to, off the top of our head, come down here to this corner and find some YA books that aren't necessarily fluff, but aren't necessarily heavy, but are maybe just have some, stop yawning.
Sorry.
Just have some depth to them. That's the word we decided to use. Okay, so we are going to look around. I'm going to have you join us while we're doing that, and then we'll come back and tell you what we found. Okay, everyone, we have a pile of books now, and we could probably keep going and going because, you know, there's a lot, actually. But we thought we would stop now and show you what we have pulled from just these shelves here. So most of these are going to be a little on the older side. They're like not your brand new, you know, not trendy books right now. But, you know, I guess that's beside the point, whatever.
The one that came to the top of my head, originally when you pitched this video idea to me were these books, If I Stay and the sequel, Where She Went by Gayle Forman. And I feel like everyone knows If I Stay, but I don't know a lot of people have read the sequel, but I liked the sequel a lot more. Have you even read the sequel?
I don't remember. I think so. It's a great house. Can you tell anything about the sequel without spoiling this book?
No. Without spoiling this book?
Yeah, I think if you talk about the sequel, you're going to spoil this.
True. But I feel like most people know this book.
I don't know. Good question.
Anyway, thoughts about life.
Life. Very deep.
Very deep.
Yeah. Okay, so here's one I pulled because I've been talking about this one for quite a while. I read this first one. Was it last year, I think, and really, really, really loved it. This is if you want something a little more deep fantasy-wise. It's lots of crazy decisions that they have to make, hard lives and scary villains, and no, really just not fluff. Definitely not fluff. Maybe quite violent, actually, too. You know, some people want that kind of thing. I don't know if you want that kind of thing, but this has a lot of action in it. So I would compare this the same depth to any adult fantasy I've read. The kids just happen to be kids, you know, teenagers, so.
The Passion of Dolssa by Julie Berry.
This one was one of my favorites, also by Julie Berry, All the Truth That's In.
Yeah, these are both very
deep. I haven't read this one yet.
Yeah, you need to. This was one of my favorite books that I read a couple years ago. It takes place in the 13th century, and it's like, it sounds really weird when you explain it, because it's churchy. It's about like
Jesus.
the Christian church, like in the 13th century. And there's this girl, Dolssa, who claims to like being Jesus's lover, and like she can, like Jesus comes to her and like she can like perform miracles because Jesus visits her. But then, people start to think that she's lying, and then they like villainize her, kind of. It's really good.
I had to read it for sure.
But Dolssa isn't even the main character.
Interesting. And this one is also really crazy subject matter, where a girl has been kidnapped and then she returns and she can't talk. Is her tongue cut out?
Yeah, her tongue is like
messed up.
Mutilated a little bit.
So she doesn't talk, but she comes back to her village, and then
she can kind of talk.
She has to decide what's happening next. She had another one where she has to make really big, crazy, hard decisions. It's just so powerfully written. I feel like I've talked about this one before too. This book is a mind-boggling, blow you away kind of thing. It's a space science fiction in space where there's been an incident, and we learn about the incident through all the documents and files and recordings and all the things that have taken place on the spaceship. And then we learn what happened, and crazy intense and violent, but just so good and very, very page-turning.
Dear Evan Hansen, this is a musical, as you may know, and then they turned it into a book that you can read if you so desire. If you know the musical, you know that this is a sad book about sad topics. Not fluffy.
Not fluffy. But we don't want to say that all these are necessarily sad just because they're not fluffy, but they're deep. They're not surface level things. Okay, that's the point we're trying to make. Okay, and then this is one that was my favorite, one of my favorite books last year. Was it just last year? All My Rage by Sabaa, Tahir. An immigrant story with isn't that the same authors? Also Sabaa, Tahir. I just really love her stuff. But that one's fantasy. This one's real life, where these kids, the immigrant kids, are living in the desert in California, and they both have these backstories that are crazy, and they have to try and decide if they're going to save their mom's or parents' business, I think. And the decisions, I think this is what I'm realizing, that these heavy books or deeper books come down to the fact that our kids are making these huge, life-changing, crazy, hard decisions, which is another one in this one where they have to decide what they're going to do to help save the business and kind of get in trouble. Yeah. And then we start learning the backstories, and it's really, really crazy.
This is Scythe by Neal Shusterman. This is a dystopian. Well, technically it's utopian, right? It's a utopia
because it's supposed to be a perfect society.
Yeah, because it's a perfect society. No one dies because you can just be resurrected, basically healed. But then there are scythes that have permission to kill people. So yeah, it's like thought-provoking in that way of like, who should you kill?
And should somebody be given that power to decide who dies? Because otherwise society will be run overpopulated. So you got to let people, you got to have the cycle still. Yeah. And so
who should you kill?
So how to decide? And should that even be a thing in this perfect society? This one's pretty heavy, for real. The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. This is about racial discrimination when the boy gets pulled over by the policeman, and I think that it is not a spoiler to say he was killed. And then just the aftermath of all that happened because of that incident, and it's very heavy and very deep. Not 1 ounce of fluff or surface level in this one, for sure.
Just going back to your idea about decision making, pivot point is all about making a decision. But this is also kind of like a fantasy. It's like urban fantasy, is that what you call it? Without real world cities, you know, but there are these people that have powers randomly. Anyway, so this girl, when she has to make a decision, she can see into both futures. And so that's all this book is going back and forth between those futures.
You get to learn both stories
of
the decision.
Both sides of the decision.
It's really, really cool. One of my all-time favorite books is The Scorpio Races by Maggie Stiefvater. This one is such a hit-you hard book. It's very slow and powerfully written. But then at the end, you're just like, wow, that was the best time I ever had reading this book. It is kind of a fantasy-ish, but like in more medieval times or something. Have these crazy horses, kind of deadly horses that come out of the water, and if you can corral them or get one of them, then you can use them in the races that happen every November. Two people are in the race together against each other, a guy and a girl. It gets a little intense, but in a slow burning way. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
I had to read it again because I did not appreciate it good enough the first time.
Pulled the Hunger Games.
We don't need to explain the things, I don't think. But it's not really
for anyone that doesn't know Hunger Games.
It's not really a fluff book, right?
Like you said in your video, like there was all the dystopian ones that it was okay to read if you were an adult.
Back in the day.
Yeah. I don't know. I just feel like Hunger Games was like trying to not that like Hunger Games was the first one and everyone else copying it, but like it's the most like you like relate it to the world type thing.
The most relevant to the world we live in now.
Themes in it are the most relevant.
Yeah.
Well,
that one did kind of, I feel like, happen, and then like this whole dystopian of craziness happened. Yeah. This one is a book that we're going to be reading next month for the club, and it's by Rowell called Eleanor and Park, and this is about these two kids and their friendships and their lives that they are leading and dealing with, and it is really rough reading the points. But it's also so beautifully heartwarming and happy and hopeful and all the good things.
Yes, and it's banned apparently
because of the rough things that happen in it.
Yeah,
like abuse, that kind of stuff. So, anyway, I'm excited to reread this one for book club next month, and I hope everybody enjoys it. But it is a YA book that has a lot of depth to it, for sure. We're ending on the best book of all time.
I haven't even read it.
You are crazy. So this is my favorite book, Book Thief by Markus. Very powerful book about being a German during World War II. The girl is German, and the stuff that she has to go through and deal with, and it being on that side of it, things during the war. So that is the pile we grabbed for you off the top of our head from our shelves, which would just be the tip of the iceberg for what we're talking about here. So for those of you who feel like you aren't inclined to read YA because you think of them as the lesser written, lesser topics, they're just not as powerful or as making statements, then I would really, really recommend you read any of these and see what you think before you judge them because they're YA.
Mic drop.
Yeah, so they are some of the best books we've ever read, and we just want to make sure that you don't miss out if you are a reader who kind of puts them aside and thinks that you shouldn't read them. So do it, people. Do it. If you have any suggestions that you would like to add to our stack, Please let us know in comments some books that you feel like are powerful YA books and add to our list. That'd be awesome. Until next time, happy reading. Bye.
Bye.